Time is up. Somebody tell me who got us up. Nobody speaking up. Hey, my ancestors wasn't afraid. All they told us is we were some slaves. I learned not to trust what you say. We ain't all come from Africa. Who the people did they take this land from? It's ours, we've been in America. That's why they kill us and they bury us. There's no one on this land more powerful. You give life to the life that power you. Peace to the goddess, we need you to come together as a people. I studied ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. Everything ain't what you think it is. It make us focus on Africa like America ain't got pyramids. Native, indigenous, future month. This for the tribe who got this us. Put in their face what you hiding for. We more than black, they lie to us. As a collective, we rising up. Tell the enemy the time is up. Somebody tell me who got this us. Nobody speaking. Did I choose? This my life is not you. Hey, ain't that true? If you woke up and today feel like a bad day, just know every day don't end this way. No, you don't feel like it, but smile anyway and meditate. You gon' make a way. And if you ever feel alone, get a song to play. On days like this, you who I motivate. Hey, that's why I gotta say, I love days like this. I appreciate just seeing a smile on somebody's face. Days like this, it don't never rain. It's for days like this every time I pray. Days like this, hey, don't wanna argue about shit. I am too lit on days like this.
What I said, what your take is. I know you sick and tired of it, ain't no faking. The whole world on fire and you baking. Nobody seem to care, we complacent. They want us filled up with fear, they want us shaking. They want all of us divided, promoting hate.
All right, peace and chaos, we are back. You guys give me a thumbs up to let me know if you guys can hear me right now. Give me a thumbs up. Shout out to the Nagas and Fangs. We are here in 2026. I need y'all to share the video out. Let everyone know we about to be cooking. We got to break this stuff down. Yeah, please like and share the video. So we were supposed to do a video earlier this week, but things didn't happen that way. We are here now. And apparently, from most people, this is the new year. But as we know, following true astrological cycles, it's not the new year. We're just entering a different period of the sun descending into the underworld, or the Asuras going to sleep, and Vedic astrology. So spring is going to be the true determination of the new year. But we are here nonetheless, 2026. I'm glad I held a little bit off from doing this video earlier this week, because you had the Venezuela thing that we have to talk about. It's no coincidence at all that that happened. Shout out to my Patreon members. That video last week on Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell was a true occult classic on Patreon. We broke down a lot of information with that. And we did a video called The Year of the Fire Horse. That was a 5-hour video that we did on So this is the one we did with Ghislaine Maxwell. And we did the 2026 Year of the Fire Horse. That was a 5-hour video. And a lot of the fam really raved about that one. So go to Patreon to check it out. Patreon.com/THE_spiritual shade room. But we won't waste no time today. Getting straight to it. Just make sure you're sharing it and liking the video. So you had this Venezuela thing, and I found some connections to the etymology of Venezuela, connecting it to Venice, which Venice is etymologically connected to Venus, the planet Venus, that's connected to a city, a seaborne city that's beautiful, wealthy, refined, a poetic civic identity that's expressed in art literature. And this symbolic association is cultural and rhetorical, but the name itself derives from the ancient Veneti people. But Venezuela carries a historical naming link to Venice, and early European explorers described that they saw these stilt house settlements along the lake of Maracaibo, and they said that it resembled Venice, and it applied to the Italian word Venezuela, which means little Venice, and they later changed it to Venezuela. So Venice is a mythic symbol of beauty, pleasure, and Renaissance. And there's a lot of connection here that I'm gonna make. So you have this Venus connection that parallels to the Sabbatean Illuminati Jesuit orders that's mimicked in the Babylonian worship of the undying god Baal, the Babylonian god Baal, and his sister spouse Astarte, which would be underlying this deitic belief system that parallels later to the Kabbalah. So during the spring equinox in the constellation of Taurus, the bull, Venus and the sun rises together there, and Venus and the sun is symbolic to Baal and Astarte, Osiris, and Isis later. So Baal later becomes representation of that sky god, that demiurge Yahweh of Yahweh, or the storm god of thunder, who fertilizes the goddess, the mother of the earth, to bring forth life, Astarte. So thus Baal was symbolized as an erect phallus in the form of a pillar. Thus, this became the symbol of a single androgynous god. So we know the Asherah pole, or Astarte, later Asherah, from the Bible, who's supposedly supposed to be the wife of Yahweh, but the Bible never frames it that way. But they're talking about Baal and Astarte. And we're tracing this. The reason why we got to bring this up with Venezuela and Venus and these connections, we're tracing the actual cult of these secret societies. Where did it come from? You got to get these parallels to the Babylonians, later the Chaldeans, and Zoroastrianism. And then you get the later day sects called the Magi. And this is the beginning of the Illuminati and the Sabbatean Frankists. So we're going to quote some history, reference some names, some bloodlines, and connect how are they controlling this stuff, and how did it begin this particular type of way? How did they manipulate and find a glitch in the matrix, whereas they can have access and change what the perception of reality could or could not be? This is an ancient practice going way back to Babylonia. So both the god Baal and Astarte represented a pillar, which was supposed to be a phallus, but it became Asherah in the Bible, a Hebrew word, a common noun meaning a sacred tree or pole used in the goddess cult. So a priest and priestess would undergo a mock death and resurrection. And I said, there you go. That's where they're faking these deaths on the world stage. It comes from a Babylonian practice of Baal and Astarte. And after the faking of the deaths, they would have this sacred marriage, which connects to the Rosicrucian order. But this sacred marriage, the priest and the priestess would copulate, symbolizing the union of God and the goddess. But I'll get into that later when we talk about the alchemical wedding of the royal families that adopted Rosicrucianism and how they hid their bloodlines from people. So this is the Venezuelan ritual. It's a Venus Luciferian ritual. Trump says that the U.S. captured Venezuelan President Maduro and his wife. There you go. The wife is significant as well, because I'm like, why did you get his wife? Why is that significant? Because you have to get him, representation of Baal, and his wife Astarte. January 3rd, 2026, this story happens. Venezuela in gematria equals 111. New York is where they indicted him to. That equals 111. An indictment is 111 in gematria. So here you have the Kabbalistic numerology connecting this whole thing as well. They said something about drugs and cocaine. Drug and cocaine equals 50. And I laughed at that because there's a lot of 50 Cent news making top headlines right now in media. And, you know, Diddy got 50 months in prison, and 50 Cent did the documentary on Diddy, who got 50 months. I just laugh at that, how people can't see that. But they also said there was a 50 million reward narrative of telling his location or something like that. So they're following this 50 thing. And the timing echoes, I guess, around the same time they got Noriega. It was during a full moon. Noriega equals 36, 108, like full moon equals 36 and 108. Manuel Noriega equals 135. Terrorism equals 135. Also, let me play this video. Yeah, there's a video of telling when did they actually do this. Let me find that. Unless it didn't load. Hold on, let me make sure, guys. Okay, it's all the way down here. That's why. Let me play this real quick.
Or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline towards their objective, and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons.
Trump in the background looking like a little child, like a little boy. Like, yep, we sure did. We sure did get him. So yeah, he said 201. That's why I wanted to highlight. So they got him at 201. We know on this channel, if you followed this channel long enough, the 201 number, 201 steps on the Great Pyramid, that's hidden. The 201 connects to a lot of things, like Event 201 with the Plandemic. So it's the top Illuminati secret society numbers, 201, 33, something like that. So Venezuelan, as I said, translates to Little Venice, which is Venus in the Lucifer lore. Baal and Astarte, and bullfighting is highly regarded in Venezuela because of the Spaniard influence from the Templars. So let me get into that in a second. So did you guys see the Avatar movie? I think it's, what is it, Fire and Ice? What is the name of the new Avatar movie? Fire and Ash. Okay. So Fire and Ash, the first 6 billion movie trilogy, which is all about hijacking bodies. It was some white guy that couldn't walk and hijacked the body of one of these beings. These I would call them cryptid beings or something like that. Cryptid indigenous beings, which we know what that is because they stole this from the Dinka tribe and the Sudanese tribe in those regions. But in the first Avatar movie, there is some predictive programming where one of the lieutenants or generals was mentioning Venezuela and doing something to Venezuela in the early beginning, if you go back and watch that. Make sure the chat is cool. Yeah, we'll get into Maxwell's dad a little bit later in the Atlantis cult. We call it the Earth Sea cult. Yep. What's up, Set It in the West, Doc? Just checking in on the family. All right, so as I said earlier, and all of this is connected to Freemasonry, by the way. This is one of the Masonic lodges in Venezuela. So I said earlier, there's a Spaniard influence from the Templars. So Spain bridged Venezuela after the suppression of the Templars, where these crypto Templar lineages, they survived through Spanish military religious orders called the Order of Santiago. Got to know about this Order of Santiago. In other Iberian aristocratic families, Sephardic Jewish networks, that's Spaniard Jews, and later exporting symbols, bloodlines, and ritual models into modern Europe, the Atlantic world, and the Rosicrucian Masonic influences. So Venezuela inherited these traditions, and this is through Freemasonry, especially with lodges that exist there called the Lautaro Lodge, which means the lodge protecting the virtues. Then you have the Grand Lodge of Venezuela, which is this one, the Gran Logia de Venezuela. Here's pictures of that lodge. Some of the iconography that you can see there. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, the main person who spearheaded the lodges is two people. Well, no, it's not a person, it's persons. Francisco de Miranda and Simón Bolívar. Simón Bolívar. It's interesting because the Jesuits have a secret society called the Order of the Equestrian. And the place that Nicolas Maduro was taken to was Central Park, New York. And there is a equestrian statue of Simón Bolívar. And here you have the horse equestrian iconography, which is the symbol of the archetype is connected to the year of the fire horse, the Chinese year of the fire horse, which is very interesting. This is when they first got the statue built in Central Park. So before I get into this, so Simón Bolívar, his symbolism is connected to Maduro being expedited. And I'll explain that in a second. But the etymology of Maduro or Maduro comes from a Spanish and Portuguese word, maduro, or matares, meaning ripe, or mature, meaning ripe, mature, timely, meaning that they were grooming him and this moment specifically for a Kabbalistic spell casting. So here we have the Venezuelan invasion from America. Is connected to the fire horse year and its coat of arms. of Venezuela before I get into this Rothschild thing. You have the horse on the Venezuelan coat of arms, emblem and coat of arms. This is the flag here, and here's the coat of arms. And the white horse, very specific. It connects to something very deeply to the Zoroastrian tradition that we'll get into in a moment. So you have this coat of arms represents a political uprising to become an independent nation that rose up in 1810. So they rose up in 1810, established themselves in 1811, which is interesting. So now you have that the year 1810, when they begin a political rising, is a metal horse year. So in a year of the horse is when they had a political uprising. And here they have this thing occurring with their president being captured. And this is connected to the horse year as well. But notice that you got your boy Nat Rothschild. He's talking about praising Donald Trump for getting Maduro. And of course, he was instructed to do this. This guy, he's the son of Jacob Rothschild, Baron, the fourth Baron Rothschild. He's a British financier and peer of Serena Dunn, which is a former fashion model. His paternal grandfather is Victor Rothschild. He's the third Baron, which was a biologist and intelligence-linked wartime official and the leading figure of the British branch of the family. So through Victor, his grandfather, Nat descends from Nathan Mayer Rothschild. So Nathan Mayer Rothschild, born 1777, around the start of the United States, died in 1836, is the founder of the London Rothschild banking house, which anchors his lineage in the core of European Rothschild dynasty. So there you have him being connected to this thing. So he's tweeting, "Good job, Trump," like, "Good job, boy." So we're going to see, since he's coming out saying that, he may be connected to a lot of things that might be grooming him to be a Rothschild face of some sort in the future. So it says that Venezuela achieved independence through the Enlightenment era of Republican movements organized around the concept of sovereignty, with those figures like Simón Bolívar, Francisco de Miranda, Jose Antonio Páez, and they all operated within the Freemasonic lodge networks that frame independence as transfer of legitimate authority from empire to nation state rather than mere rebellion. Now, they said it's key for sovereignty that they gain sovereignty through this Freemasonic lodge movement. It's interesting that the horse that won the Kentucky Derby in 2024 name is Sovereignty. And now you have the biggest news of the year so far surrounding around a sovereign or independent country. And America seizing that and saying that they're going to control the country until they can find another person deemed fit. And we know Venezuela, they already named, they have some of the biggest minerals, import, export, all types of stuff. Very rich place. But the horse name is Sovereignty. And it was a horse born the day that Russia sent its troops to Ukraine. It was born February 22nd, 2022. And that the Russia war was talking about threatening the sovereignty of the nation Ukraine. So it seems like the secret societies are placing their crosshairs on sovereign countries. You got Ukraine, now you got Venezuela. So that was the beginning of the riddle. On May 3rd, 2025, the 123rd day of the year, the horse Sovereignty won its 151st Kentucky Derby at Churchill Downs from post 18. So you'll have no doubt in wondering why the winning horses were 18, 8, and 21, because if you add all of those numbers together, it equals 47. Ukraine equals 47. And it's the child of one of the most famous thoroughbreds of all time. I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Secretariat. I guess that's how you pronounce it. That equals 47. It's father or whatever it is. So all 19 horses are descendants of this Secretariat who died at the age of 19, 188 days after its birthday, similar to how Sovereignty, the winner of the Kentucky Derby in 2024, won at Churchill Downs 188 days from October 27th. So, but Bavarian Illuminati, by the way, equals 188. And keep in mind, in the race, horses 10 and 4 were pulled from the race, and Secretariat died on October 4th. Roman Catholic Church equals 104. 104. Then you had another happening where a NASCAR competitor or driver died in a plane crash. All of the plane crashes in 2024 are being tied to movies like Donnie Darko, or what was the other one? Leave the World Behind. Leave the World Behind had the plane crashes too, but his name was Greg Biffle. And the reason why he's being highlighted in this particular ritual, he had the horse on his shirt as well. And they were circulating this image in the media a lot. So it's kind of like they marked him for sacrifice and his family. So he and his entire family, along with 7 other people, were killed in a plane crash in Statesville, North Carolina. And his name being Biff also connects to Trump and Back to the Future. Greg Biffle or Biff is a correlation to that. But he had that horse symbology. A lot of decoders didn't notice that on his shirt. And you have Lucifer. Donut went in. Check out Donut's video on the Denver airport's origin of Lucifer. I did my own decode of it on that 5-hour video, but it's very connected right now because the Denver Broncos just entered the playoffs as, I guess, the #1 seed of their division. So they won against the Chargers. So they're 14-3. I wonder who has the best record in the NFL. So I guess it is. Okay, they're all tied. So the Broncos, Patriots, and Seahawks are tied. I just saw it at the last second. But you see how the Broncos logo or mascot is the white horse as well. So I would keep my eyes on the Denver Broncos. Some type of ritual is going to happen around the horse teams. I also told people you have to go to Patreon to get this specific information, but look out for Ashwini nakshatra dates, because Ashwini is the horse nakshatra. And I gave every date to look out for that the moon will be in Ashwini. And I guess they got some of the dates here. But look out for those dates. A lot will be going down on these Ashwini nakshatra dates. But I also highlighted on Patreon how Project Pegasus, you got Project Pegasus, and you got the Pegasus Project. You see the inversion there by the Sabbateans. So the Pegasus Project is different from Andrew Basiago's briefing on what the Project Pegasus was about time travel, or sending kids in time travel. And I told people about the Chrononauts experiment, that they were sending children back in time. So on Patreon, we broke this down thoroughly, how the Pegasus Project and Project Pegasus has a lot to do with this specific event with Venezuela and these horses. The symbolism of it is synchronistic four-dimensional chess, and the elites are doing this for the Fire Horse year. So I'll go into a little bit of that. So Project Pegasus grounds that symbolism in reality is connected to whatever a emblem is of that time, which right now is the horse. The horse represents acceleration, apocalypse, and transhuman control. And the Pegasus spyware for Project Pegasus was developed by a NSO group and exposed in 2021 by Amnesty International and Forbidden Stories, which forensically proved that they were using this Project Pegasus to infiltrate phones through zero-click exploits that could extract messages, locations, and live audio from different journalists, activists, and heads of state. And then you had the Pegasus Project through Andrew Basiago, where he was saying through his testimony, he was a child himself using this experimentation, where they were using some type of machine to time travel or make people have chrono visual access to the past and the future. And they were creating salvational narratives managed by secret institutions, while the Pegasus Project documents had a real surveillance system that achieved domination through total visibility and data extraction. So they're conducting this thing, and Venezuela's whole thing is a mode of conquest that connects to the horse symbolism, because the Pegasus is really the pineal gland. The Pegasus represents the mind and the pineal gland. The unicorn is also connected to the pineal gland, but they kind of made that an LGBT symbol now. Yeah, we'll get into Stranger Things a little bit later. We'll get into that, but it's definitely very interesting that those two projects was connecting the symbolism to the horse and everything with that. So in Vedic astrology, so January 3rd, the full moon in Cancer falls on the sun of both the USA and Venezuela in these countries' birth charts. The full moon in Cancer was 13 degrees for sun for USA, and the sun in Cancer was 12 degrees for Venezuela. The sun represents the leader or the president. The full moon is opposed by Mars, that's military attack, and Venus is resources and money. Now, you go deeper in the Vedic aspect, you'll see it's Karka and the Chandra Surya, which is sun and moon axis. We know that the sun and the moon govern state authority and national identity in mundane chart breakdowns, but the United States and Venezuela are commonly read with Cancer suns. So a full moon in Cancer places Chandra in its own sign at full Pakshabala, illuminating and pressuring the sun, the indication of the ruler, which creates executive power and leadership. So all of this in configuration brings public exposure, culmination, and collective response aimed squarely at those in power, especially homeland security and internal stability. With Mars, Mangala, opposing the full moon, there is a lunar activation that will become volatile. So that's what we're seeing, which will make it force-driven. So in Yotish, when Moon and Mars tension happens, it signals an agitation of the public mind and the mobilization of the Kshtriya energy, pointing towards military posturing, some enforcement actions, or aggressive policy moves. So at the same time, Venus or Shukra is opposing the moon, introducing material pressure through resources, money, trade, and alliances. So together, Mars and Venus show force and economics operating in a tandem, producing visible action rather than quiet diplomacy. So that's the conjunction of what occurred during that time of this capturing of the Venezuelan president with the sun, the moon, and Mars. Now, first of all, I guess they had to do this thing because it doesn't make sense. They changed this guy's clothes into a Nike tech suit. Like, why do they have this guy? And you know that's Saturn, because the Nike symbol is Saturn, as everyone should know. That's like basic occult knowledge that the Nike symbol is Saturn. And all of these Sabbatean cults go back to a Saturn worship. It all falls back on Saturn, that Saturn can regulate the perception of reality. So them putting him in a Nike suit, that's wild. But Nike tech and gematria equals 137 in English Kabbalah. 137 is the 33rd prime number, so it connects right back to Freemasonry. Then they got, the sleeping mask over his face or his eyes. That looks like, what are they doing? Got his water here. Then they got him smiling with handcuffs. Like, look how stupid these people are. Like, are we really supposed to take this serious? I mean, there was somebody that literally made this guy their rap album poster. What was the guy named? West Side? It's like West Side something. Is it West Side Gun? I think this dude just put let me see. Let me put Maduro. Let me see Maduro. Yeah, there it goes. West Side Gun just made this guy his album cover. And I haven't listened to West Side Gun before, but that can tell you right there that's a ritual within itself. Hold on, I'm trying to find the picture. It's not loading yet. So it's called Pray for Venezuela. I think it's called Pray for Venezuela. West Side. Let's see if that pulls it up. Yeah, there it goes right there. So this is his new album cover. So that's how much of a joke when he got a rapper to make it an album cover. So yeah, he got the Nike Tech suit on the album cover, and they put a chain on him. So what the hell are we supposed to believe if they doing stuff like that? I mean, it gets faker every goddamn day with news. It gets even more fake. I literally sometimes be looking at my phone and just bust out laughing because it's so fake. You said, who album is this? This is West Side Gun's album called Pray for Venezuela. So I also highlighted that he looks like a clone, or he has some type of facial pageantry. Maybe he's wearing a hyper realistic mask here. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a younger guy with a hyper realistic mask. I don't even know, but it's some type of moonchild experiment because he looks like Saddam Hussein. He has some facial phenotypes, or they from the same nakshatra. They got the same ascendant or something. So what's important is that we see through the simulation of it. It's not trying to figure out what is this. Is that we see through the simulacra of what it is. It's that Bad Bunny featuring Future and Chris Brown has Venezuela Boys. I'm gonna have to look into that. You said he just rolled up. Love Ani. Is this album already out? I think it is. I'm not sure. I think the album is out. Y'all have to look it up on Apple Music, but they said he dropped it. If not, he's dropping it real soon. It'll be out soon if it ain't out today. And the vice president says something interesting today, and it connects to this Babylonian or Chaldean Magi order that appointed this Phoenician blend of Persian bloodline that later gets infused with, the Israelite whole mythology with the Jews that formulate this secret society that we know as the Illuminati or the Jesuit order or whatever secret society. When you say secret society, you're talking about these people and them being masters of hiding their bloodline. See, to be an elite, you have to be a master of hiding bloodlines. That's what I'm learning. And if you can figure out what a bloodline is, you can figure out who got control of what, which I'm going to show you today. But this is Venezuela's vice president identifying some of that.
Of Venezuela just said something, I'll just let her say it.
Sea la República Bolivariana de Venezuela víctima y objeto de un ataque de esta naturaleza que tiene sin duda alguna tinte sionista.
She said something about a Zionist tinge, and people hopped on that, but you got to understand the Zionist agenda does not start without the Sabbatean agenda. So the Sabbatean agenda is what broke Judaism into two different types of Jews. You had the Jewish person born of a bloodline that follows Judaism, and the Sabbateans created a heretical bloodline, which broke up into then three different types of Jews You had the Reformed Jewish bloodline. You had the what is it called? You have a Reformed bloodline, and you have, it's another title for them. I can't remember the other title of them, but these three different types of Jews influence the Reformation of America, all of these Renaissance periods. And what they do is create chaos. So I'll get into it later. I'm gonna literally show you guys how they do it. Like we went through the step-by-step process of the Illuminati, how they recruit you and everything, on that 5-hour video we did on Patreon. It's probably one of the longest videos I did. But any secret society you see, somebody's put the Order of the Nine Angles. If you don't understand who the Magi are, who are they worshiping, what was the Canaanite, the Babylonian fertility cults, all the way up to Zoroastrianism establishing their new order, and then the Order of Santiago, the Order of Christ, the Beth Elohim Synagogue in Charleston, South Carolina, that began Scottish Freemasonry in America. And what is Scottish Freemasonry? You know, that comes out of Rosicrucian orders as well. And I got to identify who are the names. What are the agendas? You got to look up another guy named Jakob Frank that we spoke about. And the thing about it, they're real appealing when you read their verbiage of what they were articulating in their message. Is very Gnostic and appealing, but it's very deceitful. And I'll say that some people took this verbiage or this ideology and they mastered it in a cynical way. And they had a speciation of the logic that they formulated with it. That's why we have so many secret societies or different magic institutions, magical, Western magic, Eastern magic. It's a speciation of this Sabbatean lore, which is the lore of the undying God. So they drew these principles from Egypt or Kemet, and they manipulated it and perverted it. And somehow they tapped into a archonic temperament of power that they can manipulate and control the world through. So we'll get into it as we build on this transmission. But definitely the Hebrew Israelites, let me tell you this before I get back into this. They, to call yourself an Israelite, and not to say that identifying who are the true Israelites, because you can look at Herodotus, which is history's closest ancient reporter that we have. So if you were to get goggles into time traveling, looking into the future, some type of chronovisual into the future, Herodotus tells us things that we wouldn't know if he didn't write what he wrote. So he's like a historical reporter. And he did clarify that these Israelite people were dark-skinned people. So people, they can get past that. He gives an account, and that's academia scholarly text that he identified these. He didn't call them Jews because they weren't called Jews till much later. He said that they were some type of circumcision cult because they didn't circumcise themselves like that back then. So he was identifying them with some type of Phoenician, Persian circumcision cults that spread it across, Europe, and later it gets reformed into a religion. So I can quote some of where he said some of that, but let's get back into the flow of the information. So you had Mount Etna erupt at the start of January, that the Janus month. So it's a deity they worship called Janus that people need to look into, which is why they called it January. And anytime you have Mount Etna erupt, it symbolizes the awakening of the Titans, or the chthonic influences over the subcontinuums of magical ecology to the elites and secret orders. So it was said in Greek lore that Typhon or Typhon was a primordial chthonic storm giant born from Gaia in Tartarus, which is the abyss. And Zeus, or Yahweh in the Israelite cosmology, was said to have placed Mount Etna on top of this beast to seal its destructive powers, as to all of the gods were terrified of this being. Now, I read in some esoteric texts that the being represents the soul, that they were terrified of the soul awakening into its true state of what it once was. But there's other parallels to what this thing is as well. And if you go back and watch the Netflix series Blood of Zeus, they're going to talk about this Typhon. They're going to show the Typhon, and the Olympians cannot beat this thing, whatever this monster is. But in Babylonia, it would have been Tiamat. It would have been a being called Zahak in the Chaldean or Zoroastrian text. But the point is, when Mount Etna erupts, it's a telltale sign that the end is near. And the people over there, they know that. They understand that. Now, you had a big ritual where the Call of Duty co-creator, Vince Zampella, was sacrificed in a supposed alleged car accident. And it's interesting, Call of Duty is being highlighted right now. I'm going to show you a video in a minute. But you think of Call of Duty, you think of war. It's the biggest war game of all time. Then you think of the famous song of 2024, Boots on the Ground by 803 Fresh, where I'm from, here in Colombia. Boots on the Ground, you get it? So, and Ruger told me on Facebook a couple of hours ago that there's a game that came out talking about how America's power will shift to South America into a super state. So let me play this video. Hold on, I was supposed to highlight this movie. Hold on. Let me play the video before I get into these other car accidents that happened. Did you know that everything that's happening in Caracas, Venezuela was already foretold to us? In this Call of Duty, the United States sent special forces in order to take over the dictator of Venezuela. Caracas, Venezuela to be exact. But this is where it gets crazy. Pay attention. This Call of Duty came out 12 years ago. You want to know what else happened 12 years ago? Nicolas Maduro started his presidency 12 years ago. Look at the opening scene to the final act.
To us, Rourke was a legend. A man could walk through hell.
They based the game 12 years in the past. Is that coincidence? What else is crazy is the similarities between the dictator of the Call of Duty game and Maduro. The dictator in the game is named Diego Almagro. Look at the characteristics that Diego Almagro had in the game. He would torture and imprison US-born individuals. Sounds very similar to Maduro, wouldn't you say? He has been accused of crimes against humanity, including excessive force, arbitrary detentions, torture. Not only did this Call of Duty get the exact timeline down to a T, it also got the exact location, Caracas, Venezuela. I really do hope that people start opening their eyes and realizing that they have to tell us what they do before they do it. These occultists and elites believe if they tell us beforehand what they're doing, they won't pay the price in the afterlife. That's not true. That's not true. They don't believe in the afterlife that we believe in. So we try to understand what is the logic behind it. But I used to believe that too. But it's much more sophisticated than, oh, they're telling us so they don't have no karma or their afterlife isn't bad. It's not that at all. So Ruger said in this Call of Duty Ghost game 12 years ago that the South American superstate will be called the Federation. And what happens in the game is that they hijack America's secret space weapon called Odin. And you remember Trump had the Project Odin. And they use this space weapon to destroy America, basically. And he says all but the ghosts. So yeah, it's very symbolic of what happens in that video game. But this Vince Zampella, the co-creator of Call of Duty, coincidentally dies days before this correlation between the video game he created and Venezuela parallels in 2026 of what occurred in the game, in the storyline of the game. His name is interesting. Well, first of all, he died at 55 years of age in a car crash. Car crash equals 55. He died 58 days after the anniversary release of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. His name equals 58. But it's crazy because Rosicrucian, Freemasonry, Solomon's Temple, Secret Society, all equal 58. All equal 58. So after that, shout out to Cody, AJ, and Rambo on Eye to Eye podcast on AJ's thing. They made a correlation to these car accidents happening on the world stage. This is the cover of the movie The Skulls, and they have the word war in between Joshua Jackson and Paul Walker. And you just had a fight between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul. In the movie, Joshua Jackson is killed in a car crash in a red car, just like Paul Walker, the actor, actually dies in a red Porsche. It's called The Skulls. But you had war right here in the center of this movie. And this fight between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul was Freemasonic themed. It was his 33rd fight. The fight racked up 33 million views. You know, see that correlation to it. Then he got in a car accident. And I broke down the gematria of the car accident. I don't need to go back into, because it's pretty long. But then he gets into a car accident. I think he killed a Nigerian official and 2 of his friends died. Some type of sacrifice or something. Talked about it a little bit on Patreon. So everybody was speaking about how that was kind of weird, how he got in a car accident days after winning like $90 million. So some people are saying that he went off stripped when he beat Jake Paul. I don't think, me honestly, I think once you're in on the world stage, you can't go off stripped. I think the strip was that he had to beat Jake Paul's ass as a humiliation ritual to Jake Paul. I think that was part of the humiliation of Jake Paul, because it has to be back and forth. But to say he went off strip it's just too simple to say that, oh, he went off strip or something like that. So I'm a little bit skeptical of just saying that. Now, Cody also highlighted some interesting things with the Fire Horse year theme. So in Zoroastrianism, where I said the Magi in the beginning of secret societies started based on Babylonian cult worship that they adopted. It was a heretical sect of Zoroastrianism that developed called Zervanism, that developed different practices of underworld chthonic worship, child sacrifice, certain things that Illuminati secret societies follow today. So this Magi was the beginning of that. And it's interesting, this all occurs in the 3rd and 5th century, where this heretical Persian group of Zervanists started to replace the god of Zoroastrianism, which was Ahura Mazda, with this other being called Zervan. And Zervan or Zervan represented infinite time. So they put infinite time, which I would believe is the serpent, because it makes me think of the serpent swallowing its tail, the infinite sign. But they put this infinite time being above the creator. That's one thing that Illuminati secret society practices have in their, I guess, their practice or ideology, is that they believe in usurper deities. They believe one deity has to usurp another one. You said, am I taking questions? Yes, we could take some questions. Y'all have questions, put it in the chat and I'll get to it when I can, and I'll reserve a Q&A for the end. Yeah, the Ouroboros. So they put this Zervan above their creator deity and formalized this cosmic struggle governed by hidden law. Then some type of priestly mediation, apocalyptic timing, and that worldview carried over to the Magi. So after this Persian period, these concepts entered a post-exile Jewish mystical speculation where they reorganized this Zoroastrian Zervan infinity time deity usurping the creator, and they formulated it into the Kabbalah. And it's very important because biblically, what I understand, there was more contextualizations of the Bible written. But when Paul and Josephus was sanctioned by the Roman government to put this religion together that would be formally go through King James and the Order of Nicaea, that Paul was a secret member of a Kabbalistic order, and that the Bible we have today is Kabbalistically coded because of Paul being a part of this secret order of Kabbalists, pretty much, that he put Kabbalistic mysteries all throughout the Bible. And not only that, I showed in the hoodoo verse video, I mean, the recent video, I spoke on the hoodoo verse, that in hoodoo, what they discovered, that saying certain prayers from the Bible, certain psalms or scriptures, have a Kabbalistic spell, energetic framework that can manipulate reality if you believe in the conscious awareness of invoking it. So biblically, the Bible can literally be used as a spell book, as we may or may not know, but you may have not known that Paul was a Kabbalist and that the Bible has Kabbalistic mysteries, and that's why it can be used as a spell book. So this Kabbalistic system is getting written into the Bible. This Kabbalah is a technical system of emanation, sacred names, angelic hierarchies, and redemptive chronology. In the 17th century, those elements surfaced explosively in Sabbateanism, which reforms redemption as a historical drama managed by a concealed elect operating through secrecy and paradox. So following the collapse, supposedly, of the Sabbatean movement, All they did was hid it in other orders like Freemasonry. The structure migrated into early European initiatory orders, as I just said. So the interesting thing about Zoroastrianism, so I'm highlighting the Zoroastrian connection. I gave you Zervin, Ahura Mazda, but you have to learn about their star name is Tishriya. So the Sirius star to the Zoroastrian belief, which is a Gnostic belief system, Angra Maya versus Ahura Mazda is the same. Yaldabaoth versus the soul, or versus the Christos, liberating the divine sparks out of matter that descended in matter to ascend back into the aeons. But they never highlighted that the depiction of Tishriya in Zoroastrianism is a white horse. Going back to this horse thing, it says Tishriya is involved in a cosmic struggle against the drought-bringing demon Apausha, or Apausha. We'll call it Apausha. According to the myth, in the form of a pure white horse, the god, or Tishriya, did battle with the demon, who in contrast had assumed the form of a terrifying black horse. Apausha soon gained the upper hand over Tishriya, who was weakened from the lack of sufficient prayers and sacrifices. I said, interesting, from humankind. The Yazada proceeded to call upon the creator Ahura Mazda, who himself intervened by offering a sacrifice to the overwhelmed God. So you're talking about sacrificing, I think, people to this damn horse deity that's serious. You see? So it says Tishriya in Zoroastrianism is the astral divinity of the star Sirius, governing rain, fertility, and season renewal in cosmic order through time and celestial struggle. So the clarification is given that Tishriya's myth is his weakening by human neglect and his ritual strengthening as he gains victory over this drought demon of Pausha. He establishes a cosmic clock model where human ritual, priestly mediation, and stellar cycles directly affect the world's order. And that pattern later appears in the Zervanite mysteries of time theology. And Kabbalistically, they adopt this concept into the Tikkun. Then the Tikkun, Kabbalistically, is adopted into the Sabbatean Messianic timing the Antichrist arrival. And in that reading, that means Tishriya is an early template for the stellar Messianic synchronization. So the reason why the Freemasons have the third pillar and the Sirius at the top is connected to this horse deity in Zoroastrianism and sacrificing people to it. So you have that other horse connection. Now I want you to go get a music video. There's a music video by Noah Cyrus called Don't Put It All on Me. And shout out to Cody for finding this as well, or whoever found it. Noah Cyrus is the little sister of Miley Cyrus and the daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus, the youngest daughter. So this is another Moonchild experiment to deliver the elite's messages through vessels. She's 25 and her birthday is on January 8th. So she'll be 26 in about 3 days. And yes, there is a horse in the video, and you have the Tishriya star here. You see the Tishriya star? Jorge Mendez, That's not really relevant right now. I thought he was going to ask the question that's relevant. So save that question for the end. I can't answer that question and cover this video. I mean, cover this topic right now. So in Put It All on Me, you have a video prominently featuring a horse alongside Noah Cyrus. This is a visual anchor for her burden, representing endurance and inherited strength. The animal is a symbol carrier of her pain and responsibility, which mirrors the song's theme of being loaded with guilt, expectation, and emotional labor, rather than just serving as a literal prop. So there's the serious star in the sky, Trishia, and the white horse, paying homage to the Zervan cults of Zoroastrianism. And that orchestrated this endeavor of secret society beliefs, as I've highlighted. If you don't believe that, there's another rapper named, I guess his name is Yeet. Y'all could correct me. His name is Yeet. He's one of these younger guys, also 25. He'll be 26 on February 26th. And what's interesting with him, he has a song called Lifestyle that has both of the horses that came out last year. You had the white horse and the black horse, the Apausha demon and Trishia, and Fire of a House. It's not that it's a spiritual matter, Jorge. It's not on subject. It's not on subject right now. So if we can just stay on subject, and then we'll have random questions at the end. Please respect that. Petite Priestess says Cyrus was the Messiah of the Jews and the king of Persia. They are looking to build the third temple. That's exactly what I was about to connect. So that is the connection with King Cyrus. Says Petite Priestess, just put that in there. Also, Noah is a connection because Noah represents the post-catalysm carrier of antediluvian science. Noah is the figure which astronomy, sacred law, priesthood, cosmic order survived through this quote-unquote flood, which I know is metaphysical. But it was redistributed through Mesopotamian and Canaanite culture and into early Israelite belief. Today, that current later crystallizes into Kabbalah as hidden law and sacred timing, then gets rebranded by secret fraternities who claim Noah as the original authority for universal law and elite initiation. So it is a continuity of power and knowledge moving through myth, bloodline, priesthood, and symbolism. And we know the connection to Noah and his sons, naming the races of the world. He said, you think I'm being a little hard on Jorge? Well, I mean, you guys try to stay focused on a lecture, and every time somebody asks you a question, you just answer it. I don't have time to go into every question is all I was saying. I'm going to get to the questions. Definitely. So it's not being hard. It's just a timing of how I do things. So the bloodline of Noah, there's another misinterpretation because you hear about the curse of Ham. The curse of Ham is delegated to the black race. But if you read further in the text, the curse of Ham, first of all, Noah, the reason why Ham is supposedly cursed is because Ham sees his father Noah naked. The rest of the brothers, Japheth and Shem, they walk backwards into Noah's room because they didn't want to look at their father naked. So he curses Ham. And when you look into the understanding of what the curse actually was, Noah didn't curse Ham. He passed it to his son, Canaan. He passes it to Canaan. If you read your scripture biblically and in Judaism, this curse of, and I could tell you where this curse of Ham came from. Matter of fact, let me pull that up because it has to do with the order of Santiago. Hold on one second. Let me pull this up. So there's this guy named, the reason why this thing was framed, it was a guy, a Sabbatean named Isaac Abravano. Isaac Abravano. He was responsible for the curse of Ham doctrine. He came out of the order of Christ and the order of Santiago, and he used this curse of Ham doctrine and pushed it into theology of Judaism and Christianity, and forced theologians to recognize it as so. It was coordinated as an early modern power block that fused court finance, clerical authority, and imperial expansion. So it was a reinterpretation because Canaan wouldn't be African or wouldn't be melanated at all. Canaan would actually be the people of the Middle East. It would be more Arabian bloodline that has the curse. And that would make sense to me because there's been a few war between Canaan and or these Jewish people for the longest. We're seeing wars that just was transpired a year ago. And how many times we've seen in the last 100 years somebody bomb these Middle East areas, or the Middle East project of having things dealing in other countries or having a hold on certain things that other people want. So the Canaan thing, the Ham thing was misconstrued as Canaan, and Canaan is actually the people of the Middle East. Will you understand that? So what they did, they twisted this and circulated this genealogy in learned clerical circles and converted a localized biblical episode into a racialized doctrine of global reach. And this doctrine was operationalized by military orders to control overseas ventures, the heirs to the Templar wealth and logistics, which is the order of Santiago, the order of Christ. They administer the exploration, conquest, and slave trade. So under the patronage of Prince Henry the Navigator, these institutions normalized large-scale enslavement among the African coast to the Atlantic of America and the Caribbeans, that the indigenous or these people belong to the curse of Ham. So it was of God to enslave or take over their lands. So it's very interesting how when you look into other aspects of the academia, you can find these little nuggets. And I knew somebody was going to say that. We have to be very careful when we racialize the issues because it changes the form and function of other traditions. You're right, but they've already racialized it. So we have to clarify why pointing a finger at one race or another is all constructed by the Sabbateans. So if for centuries I put into your head that this is one thing, you have to clarify what is wrong and what isn't now that you're entering the quote unquote Aquarian age. It's no longer belief. You have to know these things. You believe and you're not really blamed for not understanding this. I don't blame anyone for understanding the occult was hidden from the public, but it's time to understand it now. So it is definitely, you said, Ani, the curse is found in the gospel when the ark is said to ascend the waves and crash down both first into the whitewash. It is metaphorical and symbolic confluence of events. Coalescing. Yeah, I believe that. I'm just clarifying for hundreds of years. That's what they said. These people are cursed, and that's why we can do it. And we have to clarify, where did that come from? It came from this Isaac Abravanel. That's a tongue twister. Abravanel. The Abravanel family of the Order of Santiago and the Order of Christ. So we clarified it. Now, going back to the horse symbolism, there was another rock band, I think a European rock band named Laid Back, 1983, that came out with a song called White Horse. And white horse becomes the slang for cocaine. And this connects to Noriega and Maduro, in the Venezuelan crest of the white horse. This is why they can identify and say it is all connected to drugs. So white horse is cocaine. Which is also connected to why they're killing a lot of the Wire actors right now. Because I think in Baltimore, the slang for heroin is horse. And that was one of the main featured drugs on the TV show, The Wire. So here's the song's lyrics. You see the white horse, the white pony has been referenced to heroin, cocaine. So there you go. Another connection. So you have, what is the correlation in gematria to it? Fire horse, white horse equals about the same in gematria. Now, to sum this part up and why Venezuela is important, did you know that the head of the Jesuit order right now, who is called the Black Pope of the Catholic arm, his name is Arturo Sosa, and he's from the same exact area as Maduro was arrested at. Caracas, Venezuela is where this guy is from. He's the 31st Attorney General of the Jesuits. He's the first Attorney General to serve from Latin American descent. And what's even more wilder connection, Cody found out that the Geneva Agreement that gave Venezuela its sovereignty independence, the independence came in the last horse year. So the Geneva Agreement to split up Venezuela with the rest of Guyana came in 1966. Every fire horse year is every 60, or every horse year is every 60 years. So the last horse year was in 1966. And the interesting thing is the fire horse year doesn't officially begin until February 17th. Notice how the Geneva Agreement was signed on February 17th. And that's the white horse, fire horse connection to that. Okay, this is the Geneva Agreement here, if you want to read what the controversy was. I also noticed that the English or English translated to Spanish, the Spanish transliteration from English is white horse is caballo blanco. Makes me think of a Kabbalah when I kind of think of that or look at that word. or maybe it's Cabello. I don't know how they pronounce it. I know Blanco means white. That Arturo Sosa, Tashria, Venezuela, all of that equals 39. That same day, SMU, the Mustangs that have a white horse on their logo, defeated the Tar Heels on this same day. And if you don't know what a Tar Heel is, it's actually a horseshoe. So you had two horse teams play, and the white horse team prevailed, but the symbolism of it was very pivotal in understanding, because the horseshoe in astrology is the lunar nodes. This is Rahu and Ketu, but this is also your north node, which represents your future, the ability to fulfill your potential. It describes parts of you that are that lack in areas that you need to prioritize in your life. It points the way towards your destiny. Then you have the south node, which represents your past, your karma, what is instinctual to you, what you have already been and need to break free from. And this life calls you to move away from these areas or themes, which indicated by your south node, but that's the horseshoe symbol. See? So you have, I could go deeper into the horseshoe symbol with the Gemini Sagittarius axis connection, but I highlighted that on Patreon if you want to learn about that. But they also announced that John Elway, who played for the Broncos, another white horse team, they announced like a couple of days ago, they're coming out with a Netflix documentary on December. Okay, it came out already on December 22nd. I looked at that date wrong. So it came out on December 22nd, a couple weeks ago. I just noticed that they had 3 pictures of him with the number 7, like 777. So I thought something occult was going on. But it'll be something that the Broncos win the Super Bowl the year that they came out with this John Elway documentary. Now, on New Year's Day, there was 135 yachts of billionaire owners: Jeff Bezos, David Geffen, Dmitry Buchman, Miriam Adelson, that's the owner of the Mavericks, Jerry Jones. All of these different people went to St. Bartholomew. They call it St. Barth for New Year's Eve, with the largest, most profile vessels. And St. Bartholomew has long been known for major gatherings of super yachts at the year's end for owners and celebrities each December. This is a luxury seasonal cycle party or venture that they have. Why does this happen? St. Bart's is a prestige seasonal destination. It shelters harbors and deep anchorages that handle large super yachts well. Its island has high-end hospitality and a party scene, and it has tracking services like marine traffic that allow enthusiasts and reporters to ping or plot yacht positions. So this is what the ports look like. And let me play the video. Uh-oh. Let me try to restart it. Guys, make sure you put a thumbs up on the video.
Is the island of St. Bartholomew. And all of those purple little triangles are billionaires and their associated super yachts. This photo was taken today because all of these billionaires and their super yachts have decided to converge on St. Bartholomew Island for New Year's. You see, every year around New Year's Eve, the world's elite class, the billionaires and their pet celebrities and pet politicians, gather here, specifically at the Eden Rock Hotel, for a super yacht festival.
That's what I meant to highlight. It's called the Eden, like biblical, connected to the Israelite cosmology, Eden Rock Hotel. That's specific to Sabbatean, because the Sabbateans, or these secret societies, like to use the Bible as a playbook, but they read the Bible backwards. They read Revelation to Genesis rather than Genesis to Revelation. And that's an inversion ritual within itself.
For reference, this is where the Eden Rock Hotel is, if you're in the area. Also feels important to point out that this is where St. Bartholomew is, and this is Jeffrey's Island. And this year's guest list is stacked. We've got that evil bald man, Jeff Bezos, Miriam Adelson, that Israeli lady, or American lady. I don't know. Her allegiance kind of depends on the day. And then a bunch of other folks. Also, notably, Dr. Phil is there. I saw he was on the list this year as well. This next figure just drives me a little bit insane, so I have to tell you. But over the next few days, over 80% of all of the wealth on Earth will congregate on St. Bartholomew. Last year, 173 people attended the New Year's Eve celebration at the...
So yeah, I just wanted to highlight and let her explain some of it. This is a very huge deal during this quote unquote New Year's time, which we know, that ain't really true, but they like to migrate there. 80% of the world's wealth. That's a pretty big thing. He said, so with the white horse reference, does that mean the Denver Broncos are going to win the Super Bowl? I'm not sure if it's going to be legitimate that they win the Super Bowl, but there will be a critical story narrative around the Broncos this year. So pay attention to story narratives. It doesn't highlight who's going to win the Super Bowl, but it definitely highlights where the narratives is going to be focused upon. It said, Ani named the name Rock again. That's why I keep insisting people read Death by Socialism by J.M. Rock. Okay. Jorge says, how are you investing and preparing for what's to come? Oh, I'm good. I'm real good. I just I rely on what I know. I rely on what's bestowed upon me from my ancestors, and I just make preparations, whatever physical preparations that I've made and spiritual preparations that I make. So if the world in it tomorrow, I wouldn't say, if it was something like what do they call it, a blackout or something like that, that would be very detrimental for people, but I wouldn't be caught off guard by it. And I will be semi-prepared to deal with it. The main thing you have to deal with is people after the first couple of weeks. If the lights don't come back on, you got to deal with people. It ain't just like dealing with no lights and no heat or whatever is going on. Castle Rock Entertainment. All right, let me stop reading this. Okay, let's do the Stranger Things season 5 breakdown. So go on to my Patreon to get my hoodoo things, the plant Kabbalah. I go deep into different sacred plants, psychedelic plants that you can take to get spiritual gnosis and understand how each plant pertains to star fields, how they orient themselves on Earth, where they grow specifically at is very specific to constellations above that area. I break all of that stuff down. That's a very prized video that people love. But you had Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 2 that we'll decode. So actress Natalia Dyer here, who is Nancy Wheeler, they got her under some type of moonchild spell. You know, they got her with the Ozempic body dysmorphia. You know how they've been making all of these actresses and some actors go under this body dysmorphia where they just look like they don't have no soul. They look limp. They look like somebody sucked the loose out of them. You know, so you have her being at the premiere looking like that. People need to look at Henry's sister. Her name is Alice Creel. And she had the same dress on as Holly did later on. But this is key to connecting Holly's Moonchild connections, because Holly is actually dressing up as Alice in Wonderland when she's in the house of Henry within his mind in Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 2. I think this is Volume 1 as well. So you also see the correlation to the clock. The clock is connected to Vecna's clock in Alice in Wonderland. And the pocket watch is connected to as well. The watch is being used as a countdown from when Vecna claims your body as a vessel for the Mind Flayer. So all of this was some Alice in Wonderland references. If you go back and watch it again, they paralleled that in there, even have the rabbit in there. But we discover that the Mind Flayer is a spider. It's a dead spider that wakes up from using children's life force to rejuvenate it. So the Mind Flayer is a spider, just like Pennywise and Welcome to Derry in all of the movies is a spider as well. So the final form of Pennywise is a spider, and the final form of the Mind Flayer in Stranger Things is a spider. And they're both TV series is about harvesting energy from children. It's also Parapsychology 101, like I've been highlighting in 2025. I also connected this to the spider Loa in Voodoo Gnosticism, or Zothrianism is what they call it. The Order of the Black Snake Cult is the spider Loa, which I'll cover in a second. But look back at Young Thug. His Oi Scutty tarantula, because he changed the color at the last second. Some humiliation ritual they do to their moonchild. But the year he was promoting his album, it was supposed to be a spider. And what he did, all of the top streamers received or a tarantula from him. So you can see that in this article here. So the original album cover was supposed to be a spider. Oi Scutty is the darkest region of constellations in inner space. I talked about that on here. It's called Scutum Sobiscium. And Young Thug's nickname is Spider as well, or Spidey. So in voodoo Gnosticism, the spider loa, what the spider, because they're highlighting the spider loas up in that. That's the underlying occult message. They're supposed to be cosmic intelligences that weave reality or the plasma. They engineer vibration whose spin cycle and ancestral currents into a living web that connects the living, the dead, and the unborn. The eight legs of the spider actually represents 8 directions of consciousness, which is creation. We will have a creation magic class at the end of this video, Platonic surrealism. So creation, decay, ancestry, desire, essence, substance, dream, and becoming are the 8 directions of consciousness. And each of these frequencies is what spirit travels through. So if you look into the veves of the spider loas, they act as spiral circuits that links something called the obscure network, is a hidden web of souls where every thought becomes geometry, every invocation rewires fate. So to call them is to enter something called the Gede grid, which is the multidimensional nervous system of existence, where memory, desire, and death converge into one intelligent pattern of radiant tension between matter and divine will. Now, Lilith is the spider. You even see them make the spider head into a yoni. That is a vagina. You see what I'm saying? Hey, Jorge Mendez, you're going to have to send me questions through email. I've seen you ask several questions and I asked you not to. If you do it again, I'm going to have to remove you. So the 11th Qliphoth shell in the first Sephiroth of the Kabbalah is Lilith. So Lilith and Shekinah is connected to the Israelite cosmology. So 11 is Lilith, or she's Shekinah. Well, I say 11 is Shekinah. Her sister Kali is more like Lilith, but she can be a form of Lilith as well. And that's why she's able to defeat the spider. And that's why she has to sacrifice herself in the end. The upside down had to go down with 11. So the 5th season is all about frequencies. If you study the 5th season is about them connecting the radio tower frequency waves to the upside down in later dimension X. Just like Schism in the TV series Castle Rock. Go back and watch Castle Rock. It's some type of dimensional intelligent awareness. But the radio tower frequency is the 5G towers. That's the modern cybernetic form of the towers of Babylon. Go back and watch the movie Weapons. That as well was talking about towers, radio frequencies. But in Weapons, the frequencies would make people be subjected to control under a witch or a magician, like puppets on a string. And they actually do have that technology. You watch Sabrina Wallace videos on TikTok. She goes into some of the research on that. But if you look up military documents, look up Project Satan and Christ, all about frequency weapons. Why would they name it that? Because they ain't playing no games. Yeah, you have to save questions for the end, or unless it's relevant to what I'm talking about. You said they drew the exact same picture as Bobby Hemmett did on the chalkboard to explain universe A and B. Yeah, that was what the upside down was. And that object that you've seen later on. This is something I found interesting too. Somebody posted this on I don't have to play it, but it showed all of the well, let me cut the sound off. It showed all of the politicians covered in spider web. So I was like, that's important, because you just had the It theme. Now you have the Stranger Things connecting the spider, and they show wax dummies in some place you can visit of all of the main Republican mouthpieces. And they look very real, you know, but they're covered in like spider webs. I thought that was pretty interesting. Why would they have them covered in spider webs? I don't know what's going on. So yeah, another thing to look out for is, you said, I think that Jorge is trying to make connections. Okay, I have an email. You guys can email me at startribe777@gmail.com. I just don't like people just the spam the chat with questions directed at me. He can talk to you guys, but if you ask me a question about something in the tea of China, what does this have to do with the tea of China? You know, I have to you know, stay on par. And if somebody asks me a question, I take it serious. But Kate Bush, she needs to look out this year, because she's 67 years old. If you don't know, in gematria, blood sacrifice equals 67. And you know the whole 6-7 thing, that was the theme of 2024 from the rapper Strilla. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But Running Up That Hill, that 80s song, it is a Kabbalah reference, by the way, Running Up the Hill. Then she released an album in 2024 called The Best of Other Sides. That's a Kabbalah reference too. This is the as above, so below. And she got that running up the hill on her back. This is some type of occult symbology where they're messaging the moon child, using her as a vessel. She definitely needs to watch out going into this year, because she would be a perfect candidate based on the gematria and the sacrifice notion that they do. Also during the season, you will see Will Byers' mother, Joy Byers, standing in front of them with the Masonic floors. This is right before they reveal Will Byers is gay. You also see the Star of Ishtar on the back of the Jewish guys. Well, all of them are Jewish, really. Mike, the actor that plays Joy Myers, all of these actors are Jewish in real life, which is interesting. But yeah, Will comes out, say he's gay. That's classic Sabbatean inversionism. Nobody thought the scene was necessary. When I watched it, I didn't think the scene was necessary. We understood that already. You kind of picked up on those signs, you know. Somebody made a meme that he was going to use his unveiling of his secret to destroy Vecna. That was hilarious. The internet ain't shit. They've been whining about that on X for 2 weeks now. So you also have this exotic matter that opens up the dimension to the upside down to dimension X. This is the parallel universe material that I've spoken of. It describes an ideal where carefully shaped electromagnetic fields can form a stable bubble that keeps outside forces out while allowing energy inside to stay organized. Hello, somebody's calling. I don't know who's calling me right now. People be calling me at the weirdest times. Hold on one second, family. Let me make sure it isn't. All right, I'm back. I am back. So yeah, what I was talking about the exotic matter. Y'all understand that. I hope y'all understand. I was going to go into the physics of it, but we're a little pressed for time. We're a little bit pressed of time. The striving to fit. So they gave you the Moonchild experimentation in volume 2 of season 5. And you better know what you're looking at when you see this. This is what I've been covering. The IVF birth. They were taking blood from all of the special children, the psychic children, and they were siphoning it into captured people and birthing new psychic children. That's what the Moonchild is. That's what I've been saying. You see? So this is a satanic Babylonian ritual. And that's what they do with this thing. Is how to get the seraphic angelic host to find a virgin as a vessel to bring forth different messiahs, which in this case in the show, they're psychic children that have powers that can rip open a dimension and bring an interdimensional parasite into the planet. You better understand what's going on. Speaking of Babylonian rituals, this was another satanic ritual in the background. When they went into Vecna's mind, they even had the moon as the drum. If you look at this, they're drumming, but that is the moon. I know when I'm looking at something. They even have it in T-Ran's colors. And they put Max as the center of the Christos halo that they put on all of the Christian iconography. But that's the T-Ran's colors, if you know what you're looking at. So yeah, they're going through some ritual in his mind. Whenever 11 goes into the tank, the septic tank, not the septic tank, what is it called? Put in the chat, what is it called? The little tank she goes in. I said septic tank. Slipping my mind right now. But when she goes into that dark space, that's a form of remote viewing that a lot of occultists have been looking into in the last 100 years. Sensory deprivation tank. Thank you. I wouldn't have got that. Appreciate you. And I still tamper with those spiritual practices with remote viewing. There is a system to test your mind to remote view. There's certain placements in astrology that you need to have. And if you don't have those places, you have to wait during certain astrological windows when planets are in certain places, and you can attempt to do remote viewing exercises. And I've been doing some with the shamanic tobacco with the sacred plants, you know, the plant Kabbalah I've been speaking of, and African dream root. I'll get into some of that a little bit later on if we have time. So people were laughing. Lucas finally got his hairline right. I didn't get the picture, but at graduation, they got the black character's hairline right, because, you know, the black community was like, they got to get that brother's hairline right. That's an embarrassment to the culture. But they did make fun of him having to rescue the only black child that was captured by Vecna. So some people spotted that out. It was like, wow, he got to get the black child. People just be teasing. And yeah, so 11 had to sacrifice. I covered that. She's Lilith, she's Shekinah. The Khalifah has to go with her. She couldn't live in this world. She wasn't really of this world. She's a Lilithian Shekinah vessel. And the spider actually is the shadow side of her. And that's why she couldn't just live a normal life like the rest of the kids. I noticed her name is Jane too. And I noticed she died in January. Like Jane is Janice. It's connected to all of that. But in Stranger Things and Welcome to Derry, they're showing that targeting children is a dark allegory because children are experimented on because of their rare psychic sensitivity. So the Babylonian rituals was that they were, well, the satanic rituals are Babylonian rites where spirits, demons, or jinn, telluric, deep earth vibrations of plasma can become an intelligence that will possess an open ego. If it's a child, the susceptibility of this plasmic telluric, that means deep underworld chthonic intelligence, is they're susceptible. Children are more susceptible to that. That's why children are designated for satanic rites. Put a 1 in the chat if you understand that. So they're looking for a susceptible vessel in satanic rites. And I described that because children doesn't have, you don't fully develop your spinal cord and your cerebral cortex until around the age 33. Interesting, that number. So the Egyptians said that you weren't an adult till 33. So if you're a child, it's easier for them to have a child as a subject of these possessions of spirits. Good. Okay, I'm making sure, because I was like, I don't know if I explained that. Motherfuckers might be like, I don't know what he's saying. Y'all understand it. So non-human intelligence is the whole premise of these Babylonian rites, and they use the children almost like a Ouija board to talk to the demons, to see where events is about to happen, peering into the future. But a lot of times they lie. So there's demonologists that have a study of which names are conditioned to lie about what. It's a whole science that people don't even know. Like they know which demon. It's kind of like meeting that crackhead that always on the block, and they gonna tell you a lie every day you go to the gas station. It's like some babble that they say that you know is a lie, but you tolerate it anyway. You're like, yeah. You keep it moving. That's how they do with these non-human, demonic, or whatever you want to call it, intelligence is. Appreciate it, Keith Bernard. He says, you understand everything. It's incredible how I'm bringing it right now. Rock Shepherd says the water section on the train is the movie Snow is on the movie Snowpiercer after a failed global warming experiment. A post-apocalyptic ice age has killed off nearly all life on the planet. Jagetto said the Golem, right. I also noticed at the end of Stranger Things, they showed a memorial to the citizens that died. It was to a fake earthquake. It wasn't an earthquake. It was an interdimensional being, but they put it on March 22nd. That's the Skull and Bones date. A lot of people wouldn't catch that. But I saw that immediately. And the stone that the Mind Flayer came through into Henry is the stone in Freemasonry. Anytime you see something correlated with a black stone, that's all they're talking. It's also talking about melanin as well. A lot of people don't know they're talking about melanin. Speaking about star material, which is the melanin is these small carbonic crystals that humans adapted into their it's a word for skin. I can't remember the term for it, but they developed it to protect themselves from the radiation of the sun. But they're these small little crystals. And a crystal is a form of a rock. So you have to know what they're speaking of when they're speaking about the cornerstone that's rejected in Freemasonry is multi-layered occult understandings to that. It even looked like it came from hell when you see them touch it. I'm going to highlight that. Then they had all of the children in seances, is what I was saying earlier. They had them under a mind spell. They have to use the children for the demons to talk through. So you're seeing the perversion of what they're doing with the kids. I'm giving you that's what it was. Subcutaneous. There you go, Transting. Got some smart people up in here. Should I go into the Epstein, Ghislaine, Maxwell connections? Put a 1 in the chat if you want me to go. Your Patreon, you already heard it, but put a 1 if we want to go into Epstein, Ghislaine, Maxwell, or do we want to go ahead into the breakdown of the Illuminati? So 1 for Ghislaine Maxwell, 2 for how did the tradition of the Illuminati start. We're going to have a vote for it. All right, now the twos gaining up. The twos is gaining up on y'all. They said both. If we do both, I won't have a lecture today. I'm going to tell you that. We just got okay. 2 is dominating. So they was like, bump that Epstein stuff. That 2 dominating. All right, we're gonna do 2 because if you want to hear the Epstein, Ghislaine, Maxwell connections, which is very phenomenal. When I went into it, it's very, very. I'm going through some of the pictures right now. It's very deep connections. But go to Patreon to get that video. Yeah, both are connected. That's why I wanted. So let me highlight one thing. The whole Ghislaine Epstein thing is an ancient cult. It's an Earth Sea cult, Atlantean cult, that the Cthulhu Necronomicon myth is based upon. And the president of, what is he? He's like the president, or he's like the mayor there in Pennsylvania, I believe. he's like a clone of H.P. Lovecraft. We found that out. And the Brown University shooting and the killing of that nuclear scientist is connected to the Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell stuff. But go to Patreon. That will be worth your time. It's not a long video at all. Now, they just announced that, what is her name? Zazie Beetz is about to star in a movie called They Will Kill You. And I found that interesting because they will kill your ass. They will kill your ass. I haven't talked about the Odyssey movie trailer, but I will be covering that on Patreon. That is very important, what the Odyssey represents right now. This movie, They Will Kill You. They're telling you a lot right there. Yep, the McGraw-Hill book, all in elementary school, comes from that. Jaid said, I got your Patreon, and that video was very informative. You see, y'all need to get on that Patreon. Okay, so let's go into, y'all want to go into the whole tradition. So how did the tradition of the Sabbateans and Jesuits begin up to now? I want you to look into this guy named David Livingstone. David Livingstone, his 7 series of books called Ordo Ob Chao. You can get his 7 series of books that documents the families, the different occult tradition origins, to everything with this Illuminati thing. So the origin of it all is back in Babylonia. It's called the Zagmuk Festival. It was a New Year's festival corresponding to our Easter, when the Babylonians celebrated the death and resurrection of their chief god Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon, also known as Baal. 3 important ceremonies were performed for Baal. These acts of worship were fertility rites, referring to an agricultural cycle of nature, where the death of crops in winter and the return of life in the spring, but were also viewed as actually recreating the cosmos itself. Very important that I say that. So the Zagmuk festival was about recreating the cosmos. There also was the Uruk festival associated with the god An, which is the Sumerian god of the night sky. Both are essentially equivalent in all respects to the Akkadian Akitu festival. Zagmuk, which literally means the beginning of the year, was a Mesopotamian festival celebrating the triumph of Marduk over the forces of chaos, symbolized in later times by Tiamat. As the battle between Marduk and chaos lasts 12 days, so does the festival Zagmuk. The peak of the festival took place on the spring equinox. First, the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic of creation, was read, which was recounted when the Anunnaki gods gathered together to find this one god who could defeat the gods rising against them. The Anunnaki, 7 judges of the underworld, were the children of the god Anu, who had once lived in heaven but were banished for their misdeeds, are the origin of numerous accounts of legendary giants known as the Anakim in the flood story of the Bible, otherwise recognized as the fallen angels, the Titans of Greek mythology. They ain't talk about nothing but falling into a physical body. That's what people don't understand. When you inherit a physical body, that was when they were kicked out of heaven, quote unquote. You were kicked out of a higher plasmic state where you didn't need a body. You just had consciousness, and awareness was the levels that you would conduct yourself into higher or lower vibrations consciously. Awareness is what consciousness is. But anyways, Marduk answered the Anunnaki's call and was promised the position of a head god. Marduk sets out for battle. And Marduk, by the way, is a form of Yahweh or a form of Zeus. Marduk sets out for battle, mounting his storm chariot drawn by 4 horses. Here's some horse symbolism. With poison in their mouths, and defeats the leader of the Anunnaki gods, who is the dragon Tiamat. There was a dramatic representation of the conflict between Marduk and Tiamat, during which the god is vanquished and slain, but is raised from death by magical ceremonies and eventually overcomes the dragon. Secondly, the king is brought before the image of Marduk. His insignia is removed and he is slapped in the face by a high priest. I'm giving you the origins of this Illuminati stuff, so don't just be taken back by all the Anunnaki stuff. You better pay attention. An omen was taken at this point that if the blow produced tears, don't they have a slapping competition that they do? What is the name of that? Slap battles. This is a Babylonian rite that we just discovered reading this. When they be slapping people. Listen to this. It says an omen was taken at this point. If the high priest was slapped, the king would be slapped by the high priest. If the blow produced tears, the year would be prosperous and vegetation would grow. I don't know what the hell these Babylonians are talking about, man. Finally, in a ceremony known as a sacred marriage, the king, acting the part of the god, practiced ritual copulation with a priestess, symbolizing the union of the god and the goddess. So there they go, doing the pageantry. At the festival's end, the king was slain, especially if he was old, guys. If he was old, he was slain because he symbolized, if he was too old, to the Babylonians during Zagmuk, it meant that the crops won't be as strong. So they had a test of his age. I forgot what they said, how they test. Because the ceremony, I didn't put this in there because I didn't want to read it all to you. The servants would dress up as the royal classes or the king, and the king and the royal class would dress up as the servants during this festival. And it is said that at the end of the ceremony, if the king, there was some type of test they did, if he failed the test, then he was killed so that the crops could grow and be strong, or the season cycle would be strong. So to spare their king, Mesopotamians often utilize a mock king, so they wouldn't send the right king, played by a criminal who was anointed as king before the start of Zagmut and killed on the last day. There's a lot of stuff that parallels to this that people don't know. So one thing is highlighted. The Babylonian moon god name is Sin, S-I-N. That's where you get the word sin from. Also, that's where you get moonchild from, because in the Babylonian Akkadian tradition, the moon god Sin is the father of Shamash and Ishtar through his consort Ningal. This genealogy appears consistently in Babylonian Akkadian texts, temple hymns, and theological lists. Shamash embodies the solar aspect. Ishtar is the sexuality, fertility, and war, political sovereignty. And their lineage situates lunar time and wisdom as the generative source of both law and power. The family structure mimicked this, encoding a functional cosmology rather than a mythic storytelling. The god Sin of the moon represents cyclical time, measurement, and hidden knowledge. So Shamash expressed the illumination of it, and together they formed a lunar solar planetary triad with Ishtar, governing social order, divine justice, and imperial legitimacy in the Mesopotamian religion. So in documented history, you should know before you get into Rosicrucian, going through the beginning of the Illuminati families all the way down to the end, which would take me most of the video. There was a strong Moorish influence from Spain in the 8th and 15th centuries. And I'll get into that in a second if I have time. But the emergence of the Rosicrucians happened in the 17th century during the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. So always know a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn is very important to this cult. 1623, the event described the most important event in occult astrology, with Rosicrucian literature deliberately timing its revelation to this alignment. The narrative links the Rosicrucians to the so-called alchemical wedding of Frederick V of Palatinate and Elizabeth Stuart. So you have these two people, Frederick V of Palatinate and Elizabeth Stuart. This is the beginning of the Illuminati here. They're presented as a dynastic and symbolic seed whose descendants allegedly shaped later secret society leadership, followed by the movement's survival after the political defeat of the Hartlib Circle. So this is another secret society. The Hartlib Circle, led by Samuel Hartlib, along by John Derry and John Comenius, identified as the Rosicrucians leaders that invented what is called the Invisible College. So the Hartlib Circle is these three men who invented the Invisible College that comes out of this Rosicrucian chemical marriage between Frederick and the Stuart family. And from this Invisible College, you get the Royal Society. So the Invisible College births another secret order called the Royal Society. A lot of you are familiar with that. And from that is where Freemasonry is then derived. So I just gave you an account when and how it happened. Is through, I'm giving you a short context because, damn, I can't go through all of it. But that Freemasonic beginning, its chain of descendants continues through Amsterdam through a guy named Manasseh ben Israel, whose association with the Hartlib Circle is claimed to be culminated in the mid-17th century, including the repeal of England's Jewish expulsion laws after 1290. So they expelled some Jews after 1290. And this circle allegedly promoted expectations focused on 1666, described as the anticipated advent of the Messiah, a year then connected to the rise of Sabbatai Zevi, which is the Antichrist of the Jews, the person who started the heretic religion of Judaism. So Judaism within itself became different. I mean, there is some weird ass practices in there, but it came different, way different from the heretic Sabbatean classes. And this is when the Jewish people begin to split in belief systems and ideologies. So originally, if you didn't practice Judaism, you couldn't be a Jew. But through the Sabbatean Frankists, Sabbatai Zevi, they pretty much said, well, we want to have a reformation of this. I can be Jewish in my bloodline, but I don't want to practice Judaism. Or I don't want to practice religion at all. And this is the beginning of that. He says, is this the African origin? Well, most of these people, honestly, in the beginning, these are Moors. The Henry people, the Henry person in them, these are Moors. So there is a African and there is a European-esque Arabic fusion of things that's happening all at once. It works together. If you look at the Freemasonic main colors, white and black, you can't get one without the other. So you get these Sabbatean figures from Sabbatai Zevi, and they create this network that shape these institutions that become synagogues through this guy named Bevis Marks in London, and his American counterparts links them to the Masonic organization in the 18th century that revolutionized politics before moving into what's called the Jacobite exile, which is the creation of the Rothschilds and the formation of the Scottish Akase Freemasonry. This is a type of Freemasonry tied to aristocratic descendants of the alchemical wedding from the beginning that I talked about with Henry of such and such and the Stewardess family. So they redid this Freemasonic thing into who has the bloodline that's rich and influential to the Stewardess family. And that's where the Rothschilds begin identifying some of their connections, including the Orleans line, Frederick the Great, and Charles of Hesse-Kassel, identified as the Masonic Grand Master then. So this is the early Rothschild rise. Then the excerpt, some excerpts assert that the Sabbatean Frankist succession survived into something called the Asiatic Brethren, naming Moses Dobruska and Moses Mendelssohn as the, leading this Asiatic Brethren, and claims that their ideals will reappear in the Enlightenment Reformation currents, later American religious and political movements, culminating in the 19th and 20th revolution. So they were promised through the Asiatic Brethren that this enlightenment that they were creating through the Sabbatean Frankist movement would reappear in America. So America was a experiment for the Freemasons. People being promised things in the 1700s. So this is how the Freemasonic method developed. So the esoteric method is an Enlightenment language. They use reason, progress, reform, and public philanthropy as the outer face, while universities, lodges, other important real estate ventures become initiation hubs. So that's the first step. Step two, in 1776, Bavaria, a disciplined inner order forms with a nucleus, a new name, new symbols, new oaths, new rules, and a new chain of command, which is Isaac Weishaupt, who had graded access so information gets released in controlled layers. So information would only get released in these controlled layers. It wouldn't be let out. Step three is the process in the Illuminati of recruitment targets. They would target people that already were placed in influential gates. That means professors, students, lawyers, administrators, writers, minor nobles. And this is way back then. So it's evolved since this is the early 1700s. So it's evolved since that time. What they would do is test the loyalty of these people. They will map the biographies, ownerships, ambitions, the debt, the weaknesses of these people to assign them roles efficiently. Then step four, the order expands by insertion into existing networks, especially Masonic lodges, using degrees. So this is the creation of the Masonic degrees in step four, as a bonding and a control tool. So I'll make you a 33rd if you do this and that. at this same time, they were multiplying contacts across regions and borders. So step 5 is when the political impact comes through narrative coordination. They will see these phrases, these talking points, these grievances and organizers. So mass movements will be nudged and it appears organic while direction stays invisible, with the French Revolution used as a demonstration case of minority coordination shaping majority action. Then step 6 is the final step, when the Bavarian state was suppressed in the mid 1780s. The organization shell collapsed, but the personnel in the technique of what I described earlier dispersed into other circles, leaving the method to survive and evolve even after the original name became a stigma and a myth. So they were saying Illuminati this, Illuminati that. Now you had a evolution of this thing, and this is how they do it. You said red herring, right? Yes, I have read The Sufis by Idris Shah, and that is a esoteric model to what I'm talking about. This is like the exoteric model. How are these people taking the esoteric and like creating a manipulation tactic through it? So that's the short-term version of it all, of how the chain of events. So then you get the development of Frankism later in the late 17 to 1800s. And this thing is very interesting. It's Gnostic, but it's not Gnostic. It's basically using God's word as an advantage. So they have this saying in Frankism: if you took a cub, and I'm going off the top of my head right now, I'm trying to remember it, so I'm not quoting it verbatim. If you took a cub from a bear, so there's a story of taking this cub from this big bear, or this town of people took his cub. So the bear came to this town and said, if you don't give my cub back by midnight, and this is Jacob Frank's story of how they bond these secret societies. He said, if you don't give my cub back by midnight, I'm going to eat and kill all of you. So the townspeople met and they came back and they said, well, we just went to the other town and we have 50 people to your one. What are you going to do? We still have your cub. And he said, well, the bear said, I will eat 50 of you. So they went to another town and they came back and said, well, now we got 200 people. This other town got even more people. And then the bear says, I guess I got to eat 100 of you. And then that town went to another town. So it keeps going to it's over 1,000 people. And the bear said, I'm going to eat 1,000 of you. But there's this part of the story where at the very end, 4 brothers come out and tells the bear, and the bear says, where's your 1,000 people? They said, we only need the 4 of us. Because if you fight for people you love, because they all were brothers, is a moral to the story. But the bear runs from these 4 brothers, but it didn't bat his eye at facing 1,000 people. So the moral of the Jacob Frank story is that if love is God, then why don't I use love to conquer? If I use love to conquer the world, would that be a sin? You see? So this is what they do. They take these concepts that's meant to be benevolent and enlightening spiritually, and they invert them into a psychic weapon of darkness. And that's when Frankism begins. And Frankism is that brother tactic. There's only it's not a whole lot of them, but they will give their left arm for each other. And this is how they grew to power. Yep, this is why they say love conquers all. Right, that's Frankism. When you hear that quote, love conquers all, is a Frankist quote. We don't know where it comes from, because you're not going to see it quoted unless you read these specific books that academia peer reviews won't even review, because some of them are part of the fucking order, or they're so low in the order that they can't even quote it in an academic review. So somebody individually write it that's not in the order, and then the secret is out and they're like, fuck whoever did that. He said, I really explained the story real good. I'm trying. Shit, I'm trying hard. Off the top of my motherfucking head. This is some hard stuff to explain. I'm gonna get better at explaining it, because I'm taking my time to look at it thoroughly, you know, see what is this stuff, man? What is these people doing? So as I understand it, everybody else here will understand it. And I will provide I gave you the literature. You can find all of this in Ordo Ob Chow, 7 series of books. You got a lot of reading to do, by David Livingstone. I'm only on the second one, but his books are very enlightening and very long. Now, I want you to get this new anime that just came out called Sentenced to Be a Hero. Episode 1 just came out this weekend. And in the anime, I think it's some Sabbatean stuff to it. It says a hero, which I interpret as a Heru, is a criminal made immortal and forced into endless service. So basically, the hero is a soldier that's forced to fight these demons. And if they die, they'll be placed into another body similar to their own, but each time they die, they lose more of their original personality until they become a shell of themselves. And it's through these people called the Holy Knights that make me think of the Templars. And they have these goddesses. These goddesses are a living force that must be guarded and carried to different kingdoms. They literally carry these goddesses in caskets, but when they wake up, they have very powerful magic, and they're used to kill demon lords. There's this demon virus spreading through this forest. It's one of the greatest anime openings that I've ever seen. Watching this anime, the anime is going to put more about secret societies and shit that you wouldn't even fathom. Anime is going to put more of that in there, because they know nobody's going to second guess and see what it is. But there's a virus, a demon virus, that's converting everything into demons. And the first demon lord is this big ass cockroach called Agagi. And there's a lot of stuff in this thing. It's like an hour-long episode. I advise for y'all to check it out. It's called Sentenced to Be a Hero. And it shows the relationship between us and the goddess. It really shows how pivotal the goddess plays in a role, but not in a sense of the Sabbatean, because that's the thing about it. The reason why you call it anything related to occultism evil is because of Sabbatean Frankists and what they've done to divine things. But it's a great watch. Let me see, what else are we at? All right, so there was a Men in Black ritual they did with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. So Will Smith was sued for sexual harassment, accused of deliberately grooming tour violinist, which he looks very bussified. So it's easy to say that happened. and Tommy Lee Jones' daughter was shot and killed in the hotel. So you had this Men in Black ritual because it came out the same day. And I noticed the movie was released on July 2nd, like 1999, but July 2nd in 2025 was 181 days before December 30th. New York Post that posted all of the news on Will Smith equaled 181. If you look at, okay, so it was December 30th through the 1st. So the December 30th story was on Will Smith. The January 1st story is on Tommy Lee Jones' daughter. So Tommy Lee Jones, his daughter name is Victoria Kafka Jones, equals 190 and 73. 73 equals sacrifice. The people who first reported it name was Insider Paper, or the Associated Press was a part of the Associated Press. Insider Paper Media equals 190 and 73, just like his daughter's name. Tommy Lee Jones equals 54. January 1st equals 54. With Will Smith, they said he was grooming this violinist. Grooming equals 118. Will Smith equals 118. And there's a lot more gematria that's connected as well. So I think this was some type of Men in Black, because, you know, if you watch that, is about it is the movie that spiked their careers, that blew them up. But it's about alien exposure and cover-ups and stage threats in secret societies. It's pretty much about secret society. So people living underground and all type of shit going on. So very, very interesting. Also, they announced that another Men in Black installment is in the works, but they don't know if Will Smith is coming back. So right now they're writing a new Men in Black. And it's funny that you had both of the star actors go through this humiliation and sacrifice ritual. Then you got your boy Meek Mill. He dropped a song called Save Yourself. And this picture was taken on New Year's. You know, this is what they do. They falsify this, because a lot of people was commenting on the post. They're falsifying the outlook of him becoming or doing something spiritual by alluding to him meditating, but he could just be in a sauna and he just did something silly. But this is what the Sabbateans do. They invert what's holy. This is what they're primed at doing. So I kind of made fun of that, you know, with all of the Diddy allegations and things connected with him. And I know a lot of stuff is going to come out, you know, with him in the near future. He's just trying to, a lot of these rappers, these celebrities be using spirituality as some type of clout or doing something like a clout. You said he's oiled up. There was some booksification though. On New Year's, they showed two men kissing, and Scott Van Pelt, he almost said something he wasn't supposed to when he saw it. I don't, if y'all seen that clip, I can't play it on here, but if you see that clip, he almost slipped and said something. But they got the Planet Fitness hats on. Now, I guess Planet Fitness was the sponsor of the New York New Year's, but I think that there's some symbolism to that, you know, some type of symbolism. You know what? I have more of that. So I've talked to someone over the weekend. It was a female I spoke to. She was just expressing to me on a call that the LGBT should be respected specifically by melanated people, because they go through what Black people went through in their struggles. But there's a correction to this, because a lot of people will think that the secret societies just use Marxism and they use the fourth wave of feminism to desecrate the Shekinah or Shekinah. They had to desecrate what the feminine principle is, because the fourth wave of feminism is allowing a man to become a woman. That's the fourth wave. You got to understand what feminism is. That was a plot of the Sabbateans, inverting the woman into a man. Started in 1838 at Seneca Falls with Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. So I'll always remember my video, The Occult History of Feminism, where I break down the whole entire thing and what the LGBT, what it actually is it's a replica of the civil rights movement, but they're using the struggle, because the struggles are two different things. Yes, they go through struggle, because you're allowed to do whatever you want. If you want to do whatever you want, that's on you. But they kind of use the civil rights and the black struggle like it's similar. It's not really similar. It's not similar. There's themes, but it's not similar. There's certain themes, like, outlooks, but it's not even close. And that's can't even say that, because there's some black people that's LGBT, so you can't even say that. So they be trying little angles, and so that comes from a lot of Democratic think tanks. You got the Republican, the American Heritage think tanks. You got this Democratic, I forgot the name of their main funders, but they be having these talking points that people use. Because I remember I got a cousin, she used to be the most spiritual in the family, and I guess some LGBT people looked out for her when she was homeless in DC. She could have brought her ass back to Atlanta, but she stayed out there, and they let her stay there. And I guess she was forever thankful to them, and she started absorbing these Democratic talking points. So one day my brother was speaking to her, and she said something like, you need to include LGBT people when you're mentioning liberation of melanated people. And my brother was like a strong-minded Malcolm X type conscious guy. And he was like, well, why would I want to include them when I'm talking about directly my people, when some of them are my people? And she said, those are violent words that you said. And we always pondered that, but then we figured out that a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people in social circles of the Democrats use that terminology, violent words, when you say things that they don't want you to say about the LGBT thing. So this is a big Sabbatean type ritual. And I just wanted to highlight a personal story, because my cousin used to be the most conscious in the damn family. And now she running around looking like Nancy Byers or whatever, Nancy Wheeler, I mean, Stranger Things. You're looking, all of them, Cynthia Erivo, they looking like life is being sucked out of them. It's very interesting. I don't know if it's some type of spiritual parasite or some shit, but the Sabbateans did a hell of a ritual spell with that whole thing. You said the occult history of Nagas. Is that what you said? No, it's called the Occult History of Feminism. It doesn't exist on this channel. The Occult History of Feminism, I have it on a USB. It's from my old channel. I have most of my videos from my old channel on a USB. So if you want to see the Occult History of Feminism, you can request it. I can post it on Patreon, because I want to keep those videos kind of on the wrap. So also on Patreon, we covered in Hoodoo versus Physics, the white crowning of the head, and how Bible verses Kabbalistically were installed from Paul. I covered that earlier. So it's like the Magi version of the original book of the Bible, where it came from the book of Christ. They kind of converted that. And how horsehair stops aging in hoodooism. But you guys go to Patreon and get that full breakdown. I don't have time to go back through that. I have to get into the lecture today. What are we talking about for the lecture? And if I have time at the end, I'll come back. I don't even think my lecture photos loaded in here, but it's cool. We can just use what we got. I'll just keep this up. All right. So I said earlier that the class was on Platonic surrealism and creation magic. So the creation positive Gnostic psychology was expressed through this Platonic language. And what people don't know, Platonism is based on those same Zoroastrian cults, the Magi cults that broke off, that later developed the Kabbalah. So Zoroastrianism is an early development of Israelite cosmology into Kabbalah. They're venturing out and using these different undying God cults, and they're taking the ideology, the astrology, the mysticism of these cults, and they're incorporating it into a systematic glyph that later becomes the Kabbalah. And they say early philosophers of Greece all were Kabbalists. They even studied in regions with these people that were studying Kabbalistic doctrine. So creation within itself, when you get the understanding from the Kabbalist and the Platonic language, is a real positive field that can be navigated. So creation is a positive field that can be navigated. It can be tuned. It can be aesthetically refined, with one persistent hazard. The hazard is that language and fixation can distort the interface that you have with creation. So this is a great understanding in the lecture to understand how they use this type of magic, because creation is something that you need to take serious in what you do, whether you're practicing magic or whether you're just creating in general for your business, which still is a form of magic, whether you look at it or not. If you have a skill of creating something, even creating content, it's a part of your magic. It's partially your spirit, your souls, the expression of the plasma from the planets gives the angle of light as it disseminates through your projection of your ego and your higher self, a blend of both, and how you can fixate it the way that you put it in the world is a part of creation. And the thing that I'm understanding now is that archons they feast on your skill of creation. You see? So Platonic surrealism is treating the world, the entire world, as a symbolic dream. And as I said earlier, consciousness is awareness. So consciousness sits upstream of every narrative. So awareness holds the entire scene together. These are critical notes. Awareness holds the entire scene together of this dream symbolic lattice that we call the world. And consciousness is the moving content inside of that holding. So there's a trap that forms when a single content stream becomes worshipped as a final truth. I said, God damn. This is what these people ruling the world know. That's why we're trying to give it to you guys. It may be advanced to wrap your mind around it, but you just play it back a couple times and you start to get it. And just stay on the path, you'll get it even more. So the trap forms when a single content stream becomes worship as a final truth. Remember Plato's cave. It's a linguistic enclosure built from inherited vocabulary, cultural strips, religious slogans, and tribal loyalties that develop identity stories. Creation stays good because it remains lawful as a mirror field. It reflects what is held, it amplifies what is fed, and it returns what is projected. The magic becomes precision of influence rather than it becoming command and control. Whoever is this operator of the magic shifts what is radiated, and that field will reshape outcomes around what is called coherence. That is why the monad sits outside summoning logic. So people talk about the monad, and when you hear people say is God is everything, or I used to say that the monad, which is called the one in Gnostic knowledge, represents all of the aeons into one thing. What we're figuring out is not that there's one monad that surmises an entire intelligence of an aeon, but there's thousands of these monads or millions of these monads across, interdimensional spectrums of consciousness. There's thousands of monads. I thought it was only one. But if you think it's only one, that's that trap I told you earlier, that you think that one truth is the final stream. I trapped myself in the same fucking shit that I just told you that you shouldn't trap yourself in. So as I was saying, it's constantly learning this stuff. You never can figure out or be satisfied on what you know. Is really how you escape reincarnation. So the monad is the condition of seeing. Write that down. The monad is immediate. It is outside summoning logic. So summoning it would mean trying to call eyesight to the room. Summoning it would mean to call eyesight into the room. Creation work is an alignment. Allow maximum influence from the innermost spiritual core to shine cleanly from you and remain ungripping about results. How do you do this? This is mantra work that we spoke on. This is visualization magic, where you look at the lattice cobweb tunnel spiral that I spoke of. This is also getting the tuning fork and tuning yourself while doing the mantras, while visualizing the visualization magic. It's work, is what I mean. When you do this type of work, you're allowing your aura to be clean so you can shine. Then reality moves in response to the higher signal integrity that you just created. Let me tell you something. These motherfuckers ain't playing no. I just read a book the other day that some of these occultists don't figure out what I just told you, how to shine. It's something called transcendental meditation. It's transcendental meditation, but transcendental platonic surrealism. They be using this type of magic to summon UFOs to certain areas. They have conventions worth thousands of dollars. You pay thousands of dollars. They teach you this stuff. Then you do a ritual together and summon damn UFOs. And go outside and go see it. they were talking about in this one blog that they were out in the hot tub or hot springs speaking about the ritual they did like a night before, and a UFO appeared in the sky above them, while people just sitting around talking about damn what Cardi B and Stefan Diggs did yesterday, or what type of crypto is on the fucking market. So there's a transactional model of contact where calling entities come from higher octaves is a performance of hunt for proof, where there's a differentiated method, a meta ritual called the opening of the ways, which functions as a resonance and not a command. A contact is a probability alignment. It's not a phone call. So the reason why they will go to the hot springs or hot tub was because relaxation and vulnerability, keywords, relaxation and vulnerability, become the primary conditions. A no surveillance reflex, no clenched nervous systems, no compulsive documentation, and a no ego theater. That's why yogas, the different forms of yogas, are important, because you're changing the trajectory of your three karmas. There's three forms of karma. You got Sanchita karma, you got Parabha karma, and you got Kriyamana karma. The Sanchita karma represents the karma at the point. Picture you got a bow and arrow in your hand. You pull the arrow back. That's Sanchita karma. That's the beginning stages of karma from early in life. You release the arrow. That's the momentum of what you're doing now. That's creating the karma. And whatever the arrow strikes is the Kriyamana, the final karma of the future event of karmas. So these yogas allow for you to escape these probability alignments, waiting for things to happen in your workings. That's not how you're supposed to do it. So summoning is, in a shorthand, the tuning of a signal until the environment can respond. Write that down. Summoning is in shorthand, the tuning of a signal until the environment can respond. It may not respond right then. And we're talking about people who's trying to manifest. We're talking about creating things. We're not talking about summoning no damn demon or some shit, because people get wrapped up. You hear the word summon, and then the Christian part of you is like, that's some fucking satanic shit, to summon something. Where you summon your damn kids every day by calling their fucking names. You call their names, they come run into your room, you summon their ass. Why can't you summon something positive to come in your life? So if nothing external manifests, all it means is that the work it completes the primary result in internal coherence. In Platonic surrealism, there's something called amorphia. It's an operation of anti-corruption sealing, where a no clinging, no bargaining, no desperation, and no demand is primary for without spectacle. What it means is in this approach, this amorphia is using creation to respond to a radiance, and corruption enters when the ego demands a specific scene as validation. So the time delay contact is framed as a resonance mechanics. You need to initiate the contact field early and allow for the collapse to occur later when the conditions matches the signal. That's another key one. That's very, very key. Now, what are archetypes? Understanding archetypes is how you use magic. Archetypes are something we're going to be teaching on Patreon. Hyper beings that come from hyper symbols. They form the bridge between archons and ordinary psychology. Archetypes are treated as autonomous patterns of consciousness that seek embodiment. That's a note. Archetypes are autonomous patterns of consciousness that seek embodiment. When adopted, the archetype runs code. It runs a scale, and it becomes self-reinforcing for you as a reservoir. That reservoir becomes an archon. So that's not an archon in a way like the archon running the simulation. Is using archon as a metaphor, as a sentient tangent of you taking control over these autonomous patterns of consciousness that's seeking to take on embodiment forms. And when you adopt it, you're running the same simulation that the archons use to create this reality. And you're using a let me tell you something. You're inverting Kabbalistic code. Lon Milo Duquette, which is one of the top occultists in the world, and you need to follow him, said that this is the key to destroying the Kabbalah, or inverting the whatever spell is Kabbalistically casted from the Kabbalah. That's a tongue twister. And I'm still trying to understand this shit. Lon Milo Duquette. So people talking about what can we do? You said, what about the Quran? What about the Quran? I can talk about the jinn, but people are asking, what can they do? There's people providing methods to get out of the traps of this reality. What's my opinion of the Quran? I mean, the Quran has legitimate information, but the Quran, look, the Quran is probably the best character religious system. It's a better character religious system. With Christianity and Judaism is highly corrupted with Kabbalistic and paganist Babylonian rites that they don't know of. But the jinn, understanding the jinn and the deeper aspects of the Quran, there's not a whole lot that provides intricate detail than just following the Quran. So I'm not going to follow any religion, but it's an interesting study. The Necronomicon actually comes from the Quran and other literature, Islamic literature. You said, how many trips around that black cube you got to make before you find yourself in a whirling dervish? Starman Ken says these symbols are similar to the Merkaba. Zara says, I don't know why it's important, but I believe there is important things in there, but I never read it. Well, yeah. If you ain't never read the Quran, yeah, absolutely, there's a lot of things in there. But I'll tell you right now, the Quran and all of that came from Judaism as well. All of that is partly Babylonian. There's some things in it, I'll say that. You said, are emerald tablets real? I mean, they never, it's like an Atlantean myth. I mean, we don't know if Atlantis is real, but it could be a metaphor. You could be the motherfucking emerald tablets. That's how you got to think of it as. Your mind is the emerald tablets, or at least the unlocking of your mind. So that archon being created, like I said, so archons do not require cartoon demons to function how they put, oh, I need some horn being or nothing like that. We're just talking about an autonomous system. That's in everything happening in a capitalistic society. And a capitalistic society is a demon, by the way. A capitalistic society eats on itself. We talked about that in cybernetics, how capitalist or capitalism is an alien or is a demon when you look at it philosophically. And what this autonomous system does, it focuses on enhancing its position, strengthening its dominance, protecting its territory, recruiting other hosts, refining strategy. Creation stays good again because the rules are constant. Attention feeds patterns, emotion charges them, and repetition stabilizes them. Identity bonds a person in their own orbit. So the danger becomes voluntary enthrallment, letting a hyper symbol, which is an archetype, nest in the body and shadow until the person becomes its battery. By the way, your shadow is in your gut. We have to go deeply into that. Where the shadow is. Liberation becomes upstream awareness that's reclaiming. So let me highlight this. So liberation becomes upstream awareness. So we're talking about consciousness because consciousness is awareness. And you're liberated when you reclaim the field and dissolve the linguistic cage that allows the pattern to masquerade as absolute reality. I'm going to say that again. Liberation becomes upstream awareness that can reclaim the field that you're in by dissolving the linguistic cage that allows the pattern to masquerade as absolute reality. These are things that you have to sit with a little bit to break through what's being said here. You said, how important are astral projections, out-of-body experiences? Also, have you had any? That's why I was talking about earlier about taking the shamanic tobacco that we have. If you don't do psychedelics, we have a shamanic tobacco. We have a dream root. And I've been practicing remote viewing, astral travel, or it's a form of Kabbalistic initiations is what the astral plane, the astral plane reflects the Kabbalah, because your body is supposed to be Malkuth and these other higher conscious fields, just like your soul, all the way until you get into Kether. But yes, I do. And that's why I absolutely stress for people, one, to develop a meditative, a transcendental trance in your spiritual practice. But some people can't get with that. So there's other methods, because your astrology, that's another thing. Hold on, let me skip down a little bit. How do you get into these states of awareness, of consciousness? So your first house in your chart in astrology, it marks the moment of threshold crossing, where awareness detaches from the physical mask and recognizes itself as a perceiving force rather than the body. That's your first house in astrology. By the way, get your Vedic astrological reading at startribe777@gmail.com. Your second house governs energetic substance, teaching how value, memory, and attachment are carried beyond matter as subtle currency. Your third house functions as a astral cognition, where language, Signaling in thought forms, symbols, and directional awareness replace spoken speech. Your fourth house is the ancestral gate, the inner sanctum, where the soul encounters its root memory, its karmic lineage, its psychic home that emerged from its first embodiment. The fifth house is the creative fire of the soul, the identity play in the spirit realm, revealing to a person how their desire, imagination, and self-expression generates entire astral environments. The sixth house, by the way, the closer you get to the eighth house, you're descending into the underworld. You're descending into hell. Libra, I was talking to my homeboy over the weekend. He's an astrologist. He was telling me that Libra, what was it? Libra, Scorpio, and it's one more sign, but mainly Libra, Scorpios. They're closer to the eighth house. That's why they associate Scorpio with like a scorpion or something very dark of an energy, because they're close to the eighth house, meaning they can see the underworld in other people, or they can see the darkness in other people. Same thing if you have a Jupiter placement in your ascendant, or you have a benefic planet that's exalted. The light from your planet, see, it can either be too much. It's good to have a little bit of everything, but if it's centered in your ascendant and you have some Rashasha or Rashashic energy of malefic planets and other houses, you can go into the underworld. You can go into criminal places. You can go into real dark areas in the physical world and on the spiritual plane and be protected, because Jupiter is there to ground you. And Jupiter is the most spiritual planet, so it's there to ground you. My homeboy was breaking that down, like, because of our Jupiterian placements, I can go into the darkest pits of hell and come out unscathed. Meaning I can sit around some of these characters or people that have very negative spiritual aura, and I can come out unscathed. So it's important to understand that, because if you have darker malefic planets in these places in your chart, you have to understand why and what you have to do to settle what is this autonomous pattern that you create in the environment of how you express yourself, that we explain in Platonic Surrealism. So how you do creation is a magic. How you create, how you generate money, how you bring things into your world, how you take things out of your world is essential to your astrology. And the eighth house is pretty much representative of like the pits of hell. And as you come out of the eighth house, you go towards the 12th house, which is like heaven. So you're ascending into heaven from the eighth house. It's like the fallen angel coming back, went into the pit of hell, or Jesus, the soul being representative of Jesus, going into the eighth house, descending into the pit of hell, where he's supposed to take the keys from Satan and ascend back into heaven. That's what astrology is actually explaining in your houses, of how your soul is doing that. You said, how are they dangerous? What are you talking about, Sagittarius? I gotta know, but y'all probably talking amongst yourselves. Oh, you say you have some dangerous people who befriended me all my life. I promise you, I can look into your chart and tell you why. Because the people in your the people that's in your living space that you actually give attention to day to day, that's what you would call family and friends, are the planets in the houses in your chart. They aren't just you and how you function psychologically. They're literally who you attracted in your life. You said they always protect me. You told me in my reading. There you go. You said, I'm fine. Ani, you did my reading around this time last year. Do you think it's time for another one? You should always get a transit reading. If you have your birth chart, you're going to have your birth chart. If you haven't had your birth chart, you definitely need to get it. But if you're always going to need your transits, like what is your transits? So we can do a transit reading and see what is your Mahadasha, Antradasha in correlation to where your transits are right now. So you can go in any hood in America and be good. Right. That's exactly what bro said too. That's exactly what my homeboy was like, the darkest places you can go in. I was like, damn. That's been me my whole goddamn life. So some of us, we are the enlightened soul versus the NPC. See, the enlightened soul is literally projecting the thread of creation out of themselves. We're generating what is beyond this false simulation. The NPC is allowing the threads of the simulation to control them. You can kind of sense that in a person. It's crazy. Yeah. Please email me and we can get that done. Let me open it up for questions. I wasn't able to finish everything today, but I have to watch the time. So I'll leave the remaining. Y'all don't ever come on camera, so I'm gonna just, if you're in the chat, if you have questions. I did highlight earlier the wire rituals, a lot of wire actors being killed. You had Isaiah Whitlock that died. And you had, what is his name? James Ranson that was sacrificed as well. So keep your eyes on the wire and why they sacrificing so many people right now. Yeah, he was in the wire and he was in the Welcome to Derry series. Some people say he was sacrificed for Welcome to Derry. I could see that as well, but he was in the wire. He was in the wire as well. And I also highlighted that the kid in the wire, what is his name? Naaman? Naaman Bryce. He's a rapper. He just released a album called The Coldest. No, it's called 33 Winters. Got that 33 on it. The coldest winter ever. And it has been one of the coldest winters, by Julito McCullum. Said, do you think Three-Eyed Atlas is a crystal? It acts like one, in my opinion. Could very well be. I mean, it could be a multitude of esoteric, interdimensional outlooks on what it is. It could be a multitude of however you look at it. You said, wait, Sister Soldier. Did you call this dude Sister Soldier? Y'all is crazy. So watch out for more wire rituals. Snoop Dogg was out performing during Christmas. I was going to talk about that and show you a video on that, but more Sabbatean stuff. Had the bunnies come out. You know, Bad Bunny is performing at the Super Bowl. Snoop Dogg always symbolizes the serious dog or the dog star, but he has all red on, got the red background and all of that. This is all Sabbatean at the end of the day. Oh, that's the name of Sister Soldier's book, The Coldest Winter Ever. Oh, okay. He said Yeshua had to have studied this occult thing. His Jewish religion goes way, way back. Yeah, your boy Strilla out here. That's the one who created the whole 6-7 thing with the kids. He's out here doing rituals with these birds, sacrificing pigeons and shit. So he's a spectacle. He's just looking for attention, trying to say he practicing his Santeria, his religion, his spiritual religion. And they use these diasporic religions as something, as a rebellion towards whatever the religion or outlook of our parents or older generations. They think they're venerating themselves by doing it. But it's another archonic trap. You have to be free of systems. Literally, you have to generate your own, but you can take things that pertain to you, that works for you. That's why it's important to understand astrology. These other people are allowing the archons of other egregores to manifest as their what they dedicate their energy towards. You don't want to be a part of something like that. Utilize what you can. You said a Crip wearing all red. Y'all are hilarious. These are some people full of shit. So I don't see any questions. We will continue everything else going into Patreon. By the way, if you want to join our Patreon group, is www.patreon.com/THE_spiritual shade room. I guess I'm going to close it out with that. We'll be back this week on Patreon to finish out the lecture and go a little bit more deeper. So with that, I'm going to say Abram Poya, Aushulu, Ashe to the ancestors, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.